The Starting Five podcast has returned for Season 3. Here at Big Time Hoops, we're excited to welcome back the UK-born, but now proud Mainer Abby Davies and the North Deering dweller Taylor Mannix of the Portland Underground. They're back to serve the great basketball fans of Maine their weekly dose of local hoops discussion. And now, without further delay, here is Taylor Mannix and Abby Davies with the Starting Five podcast, brought to you by Big Time Hoops Maine and presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union.
Welcome into the Big Time Hoops Starting Five podcast. Taylor Mannix here. We are without Abby Davies this week. He'll be back on the next episode, but y'all are stuck with me. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I know, I'm sorry. Full disclosure, little personal stuff. My fiance broke her tailbone, but we're back. I've been playing maid, taking care of her, being the good future husband that I am. But y'all don't care about that. Y'all care about Maine hoops, and we'll get into that with the Maine College Round Up first, highlighting Maine programs and athletes in college. We'll also talk about the Maine Celtics and the Maine Celtics Minute, brought to you by Nosh Kitchen Bar, and then cap it off with everyone's favorite Starting Five, featuring boys and girls headlines, the CMCC Game of the Week. We'll also dive into Class C South on the girls and boys side and talk about some teams to watch from Class C South moving forward. Also, a new classification proposal. Steve Craig had a nice article about it. We've seen a lot written about it as well over the past few weeks. I'll definitely give you my take on the new classification proposal and what I like most about it. And then to finish it, I'll give you my boys and girls power rankings. Top 5 in the South regions, all classes. I put them together over the last week. I have decided who my top 5 teams, girls and boys, are so far through the season, and I'll give them to you right here on the Starting Five podcast. So stay tuned. A word from our sponsors first here on the Big Time Hoops Starting Five podcast, presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union. At Town & Country Federal Credit Union, we believe in hoops, except the ones you have to jump through to get a great deal. That's why Town & Country has a rewards checking account with a free debit card that has no monthly fees, no minimum balance, ATM refunds, and lots of financial freedom no matter what your age is. Stop paying ridiculous fees for your money. When it comes to making a winning shot, joining Town & Country Federal Credit Union is nothing but net. Make a fast break to Town & Country now online at tcfcu.com. That's tcfcu.com. Town & Country Federal Credit Union. Membership eligibility applies. Federally insured by NCUA. Clean Me Exteriors is a local family-owned pressure washing and exterior cleaning business providing services for residential and commercial property owners in southern Maine. Whether it's washing dirty siding, removing moss and ugly stains from your roof, or making sure your gutters are clean and working properly, Clean Me Exteriors is here to help. With over 200 plus 5-star reviews, Clean Me Exteriors is southern Maine's leader in all exterior cleaning needs, providing excellent service to homeowners, property and facility managers, retailers, contractors, and more. Are you ready to have the cleanest property on the block? Give us a call today at 207-209-3799 or visit our website www.cleanmeexteriors.com for a free inquiry form and to learn more. Welcome back into the Big Time Hoops Starting Five podcast, presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union. I'm Taylor Mannix again, here taking you through the Maine College Round Up, brought to you by Clean Me Exteriors, highlighting Maine's programs and athletes in college. First, let's start with someone who we haven't talked about once this year, which is breaking my heart. I'm sorry, Mr. Will Davies of St. Anselm College men's basketball team, who earned the NE10 Rookie of the Week award after an impressive performance in 2 road victories. One of those victories coming against Southern New Hampshire, where he scored a career-high 14 points. He then followed that up with a key go-ahead three-pointer to secure a victory against Bentley, showcasing his ability to perform under pressure that we saw for many years when he was at Thornton Academy. He obviously has the infamous buzzer beater to beat Bonnie Eagle. I know that buzzer beater is famous for many other reasons, but still, Will Davies was always known as Mr. Clutch, and he's carrying it into St. A's. By the numbers over those 2 games, he averaged 11.5 points, shot 7 for 9 from the floor for 77.8%, and was also 4 for 4 from three-point range for, well, 100% for those of you who are good at math. Don't need a spreadsheet to get that one down. He contributed also 2.5 rebounds and 2 assists per game. And in last night's game, trying to follow up his NE10 Rookie of the Week, he did only play 13 minutes, shot 2 of 3, 1 of 2 from beyond the arc, and finished with 5 points on the night against Franklin Pierce in what was a winning effort for his St. Anselm's team, 94-89. They're now on a 3-game winning streak. They play American International next in Springfield, Massachusetts this Saturday in NE10 action. Speaking of St. Anselm's, another familiar face from that college is Bryce Lauser, who has now taken his talents to USM, where he is cooking. Lauser, who led Hamden Academy to a Class A state championship back in 2020, is now leading the way at the University of Southern Maine. Lauser, who has also played collegiately for the University of Maine and, as mentioned, St. Anselm's College, has found a home in Gorham this year. While playing for the Huskies this season, Bryce has averaged 23.2 points a game, 12.1 rebounds, and 3.2 assists. And most impressively, he recorded his 13th double-double yesterday in a Huskies win over the Plymouth State Panthers, 91-72. That 13th double-double came with 20 points and a game-high 13 rebounds to lead 3 players in double figures. Lauser was 6 for 13 and 4 for 9 from 3 for his team-high totaling, adding 13 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. Bryce and the rest of his teammates will look to continue their resurgence. USM is now 7-10 and 3-5 in Little East play. Their next game is against Keene State on the 25th at 3 p.m. Keeping it at USM, but going to the women's side, another familiar face from Hamden Academy, Lucy Wiles, who's a freshman, scored 19 points to help the Huskies win 63-56 over the Plymouth State University Panthers. Wiles was 5 for 9 from the field and a solid 8 for 9 from the free throw line as well for USM. Another freshman that's a familiar face was Dakota Shipley of Bath, Maine, who played for the Brunswick Dragons. She added 11 points and 5 rebounds to go with 4 steals and a block shot, getting it done defensively. And another Mainer who was a big contributor in last night's USM win over the Plymouth State Panthers was Maddie York of Lincoln Academy. York went 3 for 5 off the bench from 3 and finished with 9 points. USM women will also play Keene State on the 25th. Their tip-off is 1 p.m. Well, in keeping with the trend here, we've talked a lot about Hamden Academy graduates. I think it's time to talk about another one, as Zach McLaughlin has been named the North Atlantic Conference Rookie of the Week for the second time this season. McLaughlin only had 1 game to prove the NAC he was worthy of the award, and he only needed 19 minutes of play against the Lesley University Lynx to prove it. McLaughlin finished with a game-high 17 points in just 19 minutes on an efficient 6 of 11 shooting from the field. And with the Beavers clinging to a 2-point lead entering the second half, McLaughlin took over offensively, scoring 12 points in the half. He shot 4 of 7 from the field and 4 of 6 from the free throw line to help the Beavers secure that 10th win of the season. McLaughlin also grabbed 5 rebounds in that victory. So once again, Hamden Academy graduates showing out at the next level. Lucy Wiles, Bryce Lauser, and Zach McLaughlin all deserving the praise this week. Speaking of the University of Maine at Farmington, though, they suffered a tough defeat, and Zach McLaughlin unfortunately was a part of it, and it came at the hands of Brady Coyne, former Falmouth standout and junior at Bates now. Brady Coyne drilled a buzzer beater from the baseline to give the Bates Bobcats a 66-64 win over UMF. Coyne finished with a team high for the Bobcats at 21 points and 5 of 7 shooting from beyond the arc and 8 for 13 overall. Peter Syhodges had a high-performance effort as well, 6 for 11 from the field, 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. On the other side, we mentioned Zach McLaughlin. He finished with 25 minutes off the bench and 14 points. He was tied with the leading scorer for UMF. Dylan Griffin was the other one with 14 points on 3 of 13 shooting. He also finished with 9 rebounds. Simon Chadbourne had 13 points on 5 of 11 and 3 of 6 from beyond the arc. On the women's side, just like Zach McLaughlin, a fellow Mainer won the NAC Rookie of the Week. Her name, Jaden Pingree, and it was her second time in as many weeks and the third time this season she's gotten the NAC Rookie of the Week honors. The J. May native led the Beavers in the one game they played last week against the Lynx. She finished with 15 points, shooting 6 of 11 from the field, including an efficient 3 of 5 from beyond the arc. Her performance helped the Beavers secure a 92-43 win over that Lesley University Lynx team. And Jaden Pingree continues to show out, a Spruce Mountain standout. The Phoenix are proud, I'm sure of it, and Zack Keene, who we'll talk about in a little bit for getting his 100th win, must be proud looking at one of his former stars showing out for the Beavers. Let's head up to Orono now and take a look at what's going on the University of Maine campus with the men and women's basketball team. On the men's side, they're 4-1 in conference play and have won 4 straight since the opening loss to Bryant. The Bulldogs took them to task early on in conference play, and they'll play UMass Lowell here tonight, which is going to be a massive test. UMass Lowell's very talented, but Maine have proven they're one of the top teams in America East themselves. And again, on a 4-game win streak and playing really well at home, 5-1 at the Pit. Unfortunately for them, Thursday night's game against UMass Lowell will be at Lowell, so a tough tough task. Lowell enters this one a very, very talented team. They've been one of the surprise teams here in this America East. I shouldn't say necessarily a surprise to anybody who watches the conference, but at 13-6, 2-2 in conference play, their only losses to Bryant and Vermont. They're one of the most formidable opponents Maine will see, and of course, they're hosting at the Costello Athletic Center tonight. So UMaine has their hands full. We'll see how they do. Maine won't be back in action again in America East play until they host the University of New Hampshire next Thursday at the Pit for Greek night. On the women's side, the women are 9-10 so far, but 4-2 in conference play and have won 2 straight since dropping a 60-55 contest at the University of Albany. Maine since have won games against NJIT 71-58 in Orono and UMBC, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County 61-47. Both those games have been at home, and they'll complete the 3-game homestand against a team that they usually dominate in UMass Lowell. Maine are 5-3 at home, and with a win would go to 6-3, meaning that more than half of their wins coming at home. They're 3-7 away from the Pit, and both their America East losses have come on the road at Binghamton and at the University of Albany. They won't have to worry about going on the road tonight, but they will have to worry about going on the road in a week next Thursday when they head down to Durham to take on their rivals, the University of New Hampshire. Turning our attention to the Maine Celtics for a Maine Celtics Minute brought to you by Nosh Kitchen Bar. Maine are back in action this Friday against the Westchester Knicks on the road. They return to Maine to play the Osceola Magic Sunday at 1 p.m., which should be a great game against the Osceola Magic, affiliates of the Orlando Magic at the Portland Expo. Wednesday, January 29th, the Iowa Wolves are going to be in town, and they will be in town for a couple days playing the 29th and 31st of the end of the month. So make sure you get your tickets at MaineCeltics.com and get to the Portland Expo and check out the best basketball outside of the NBA right in Portland, Maine. Last time out, Maine was unfortunately beaten up pretty bad, 109-91, to a Long Island Nets team that featured quite a few players that you would recognize. Killian Hayes, Drew Timme as well, former Gonzaga standout, played on that team, and they really took it to Maine. Maine just didn't have enough that Sunday, but they're back in action this Friday against Westchester, and then again home Sunday, Wednesday, Friday of next week. Maine looking to get things going here. A team that was in the G League Finals just a year ago against the Oklahoma City Blue and lost in 3 games. Felt like they did a lot this year, especially with bringing back J.D. Davison. I know Drew Peterson hasn't been playing, a two-way player for them, and they had Jordan Walsh last year a lot, who's clearly an NBA player. But Baylor Shireman's been down, and he's been giving some big minutes, so hopefully this Maine team could turn it around. I think we'd all love to see them back in the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs the last 2 years and been really competitive in the G League thanks to the Boston Celtics really putting forth an effort to improve the G League and improve their players through kind of growth and development, and using the G League is important to them. So it's definitely shown, and we'll see how it goes this weekend starting tomorrow against the Westchester Knicks on the road. Hopefully Maine can get back on track. Again, Maine right now, the way it stands, are 6-7, sitting 10th in the Eastern Conference. We're going to take a break here on the Big Time Hoops Starting 5 podcast presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union. The Starting 5 coming at you next. The shots you never make are the ones you never take. Give Town & Country Federal Credit Union a shot and you'll be part of a winning team. Town & Country has an awesome mobile app so you can do what you want when you want it. No monthly fees, no minimum balance, a free debit card, and you can get paid for living life. Don't double dribble the opportunity to bank local and bank better, except not at a bank, at Town & Country Federal Credit Union. Join Maine's best credit union at tcfcu.com. That's tcfcu.com. Membership eligibility applies. Federally insured by NCUA. Welcome back into the Big Time Hoops Starting 5 podcast presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union. Taylor Mannix here. Let's get into the Starting 5, and let's tackle the headlines first. We will get into the CMCC Game of the Week in the Class C South regions, boys and girls. Also talk about that new proposal, and I'll give you my power rankings, top 5 boys and girls in the South. But let's start again with headlines. TA boys basketball is a real threat in AA South. There's a lot to cover over the past few weeks I haven't been in, so I'm just going to tackle a few of the big ones that stood out to me. We got another episode coming Sunday that I'll be in here recording either Sunday or Monday, and I promise I'll get you guys more updated stuff on this week, but I want to tackle what I've missed and some of the things that I've been seeing. And Thornton Academy right now are rising up the ranks. Last Tuesday, they knocked off South Portland, and they beat Bonnie Eagle earlier this week, and I got to speak with Coach Nelson on how things have gone this season earlier today, and I asked him about that South Portland game where they really had to battle defensively with a tough South Portland team, a gritty South Portland team that when we look at at the Class AA South standings, sits 11-3. Thornton Academy 11-2 right now on the season after beating Bonnie Eagle, and are on a 6-game winning streak with their next game coming up on the 24th, Friday, against Bangor. They're hosting them at Thornton Academy, but losses to Noble, loss early on in the season to Sanford, but yeah, last Tuesday getting that signature 38-33 win over South Portland. Here's Coach Mike Nelson on the win over the South Portland Red Riots.
You know, it was a rock fight. It was the epitome of a rock fight. You know, it ended up being a lot of half court. I think both teams want to run and play with some pace, but both teams also want to stop the other team from running and playing with pace and don't want to give up any transition points or transition buckets. And both teams are, you know, really good in the half court. So I'd say, you know, the transition defense of both teams was terrific. And then, you know, which leads to the next phase of half court defense. And it ended up becoming a half court game because neither one of us wanted to give up, you know, transition buckets to the other team.
That again, Coach Mike Nelson of the Thornton Academy boys basketball team discussing his team's win over South Portland last Tuesday. Again, you heard it there, just a rock fight between these two teams, and especially for those of you who have seen South Portland, they have length. They're really hard to play with in the half court, so the fact Thornton Academy was able to outlast them and get a big signature win against them says a lot. I asked next Mike Nelson a little bit about two of his leaders, Zack Nelson, who averages 10 points a game, and Wyatt Benoit, who averages 22.4 points a game. Both of them are the only two Trojans that average double figures on a nightly basis. So I asked Coach Nelson a little bit about what those two bring to the team. Here's what Coach had to say.
Yeah, everyone knows about Wyatt. You know, he was the leading scorer, you know, in the league last year as a junior, and he is big shot. You know, Tuesday night against Bonnie Eagle, he had 29, but the most impressive thing was he was 12 of 13 from the floor. So it's his efficiency that, is really something that I don't think people understand. They know he's a good player. They know he can score, and he is an absolute scoring machine. But, you know, the efficiency at which he does it is really impressive to me. Like I say, 12 for 13 against Bonnie Eagle. And Zach, he's just kind of like the glue to our defense, honestly. And, he gets a lot of buckets as a result from people, Wyatt gets into the paint, really well, and he gets doubled or tripled or, Zach has been the beneficiary of Wyatt's, paint touches.
You hear it there from Coach Nelson, benefiting from the paint touches. You love a good 1-2 game that can really open things up for the rest of the team, and that's what they do. He mentioned Wyatt Benoit's efficiency as well, and it's incredible when you look at the stats that Coach sent me. The field goal percentage for Wyatt Benoit this year, he's 92 field goals made on 192 attempts, which is good for 47.9% from the field. Unbelievable. On twos, he's shooting 55.5%, which is just incredibly effective inside the arc. And then, of course, when he goes outside of the arc, not as effective, 29.1%, but hitting 80% at the free throw line. So this kid is Big Shot Benoit. We've been talking about him for a long time on the Big Time Hoops Starting 5 podcast, and he continues to show you why he's likely to be a finalist for Mr. Maine basketball, and definitely somebody who should be in the conversation for it. I know I didn't have him in my last top 5. Shame on Taylor Mannix, but Coach Nelson's done a good job at showing me the way, if you will. Wyatt Benoit, definitely a considered finalist and should be considered a finalist for Mr. Maine basketball. But let's talk about the rest of the team. I also asked Coach Nelson about the underclassman Liam Hamilton and how some of these other guys fit in around this senior class at Thornton Academy. Here's Coach Nelson again on some of the other players here with this Thornton Academy team.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Liam, is a freshman, and he, 6'3", 6'4", but really long arms, really good shooter from the three-point line. And he really has injected, some offense into the game when we need it. He had a big 3 in the second quarter against South Portland. So that's just really, he's really helped us that way. Junior Simon Gellis is kind of like Ryan Kamari, except he's bigger. He's a 6'3", kind of small forward type, and he can guard anybody. And offensively, his game is starting to come along. We really look for him as hopefully we get into this playoff run coming up. him to being a really big-time two-way player for us, scoring as well as, keeping his defensive prowess, at the highest level. Another one is Deshaun Alston. He's a junior and he's come off the bench and he's played really well for us. He started against Chevrolet when Simon was out with an ankle injury, and just, basically couldn't come off the floor. He was that good, and he brings another offensive threat to our team, from the 3-point line, but also really good handler of the ball.
So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. Coach Mike Nelson, again, of Thornton Academy on the boys' side. A great conversation I had with him. You can check out the full conversation on the BigJab.com's website. Obviously, this is Big Time Hoops podcast, but I do work for the Big Jab 10 to 2 o'clock. My brother Jeff Mannix and I host a radio show, and we do a lot of local stuff, and it was great to have Coach Nelson on, and glad I could bring some of those sound bites to you guys because it was a great conversation. And Thornton Academy, again, have put themselves at the top of the totem pole in Class AA South as a serious contender along with South Portland. Not to forget about some of the other teams there in that South region, especially Deering, who just beat Chevrolet for goodness sakes the other day. And Sanford has some big wins despite a 4-9 record. So don't sleep on, of course, Scarborough and everything that they have. Adam Fitzgerald's one of the best stories here, coming down and transferring to Scarborough and having them where they are with 7 wins. So that South region is very competitive, and I know Thornton and South Portland are the 2 teams to beat arguably, but boy, there's a lot of competition. Again, Deering beat Chevrolet. I still couldn't believe that. Y'all know I'm huge on this Deering Rams basketball team. I've been waiting for them to get a signature win this year, and they definitely got it against Chevrolet. What a win. Evan Lagasse hitting a big-time shot in that game. With that segue, let's head to AA North and talk a little bit about what's been going on up in that region. We mentioned that Chevrolet took a loss to Deering. They're 10-3. Edward Little 8-6 right now, but Oxford Hills was the story as they got a massive win over the Windham Eagles and improved to 7-7, handing Windham just their second loss this season. The Vikings got 12 second-half points from Cameron Polkinen and won the second half by 7 to shock the Eagles 70-65. One of the bigger results that out there with Deering also getting a big result, but just showing you how much parity is in these regions in AA. Yes, there are teams that have put themselves ahead of the rest, but teams like Oxford Hills, Edward Little, Scarborough, they're going to have something to say when we get to tournament time, and I'm looking forward to it. And Oxford Hills, they're getting their signature win of the season, so congratulations to them and a big win. And AA North region and AA South getting a little bit more intriguing as we head into this weekend. We've talked a lot about Class A South this year, so let's get a little bit more into Class B South and not the teams that we've been talking about. We've been talking a lot about the 14-0 Medomak Valley Panthers and the 13-0 York Wildcats, who have just been rolling through the competition. We've talked a lot about Spruce Mountain as well and Oceanside to a degree, but let's talk about the 10-3 Lincoln Academy Eagles. The Eagles are making a push right now in the second half of the season after what was a little bit of a soul-searching moment for this group. They had lost to York, they had lost to Oceanside, they had lost to Medomak Valley, and they were sitting at 4-3 right after that January 2nd game against Oceanside, where Zeb Foster hit a game-winning buzzer beater, essentially. 62-60 was the final in that one at Oceanside. Since that moment, and since this team was challenged to challenge themselves after losing 5 starters last season, you could see the growing pains were showing. Now, though, this group has ripped off 6 straight victories. Mountain Valley, Belfast, Winslow, Spruce Mountain, Mount View, and Oceanside. They exacted their revenge. No Zeb Foster in that game. He was out with an illness, so they didn't have to deal with Oceanside's best player, but got a big convincing win 76-51, and now set themselves up for a must-see matchup on the road at Medomak Valley on Friday on the 24th. This is a can't-miss game, guys. Lincoln Academy has completely turned its season around. They seemingly have gotten in the groove and have started to really play as a team. Chase Coffin, Terry Well, EJ Hunt, and of course Drew Hunt have really again assumed the responsibility. After clearly this year there was again a little bit of soul searching. They know who they are now. They have their identity, and a big shout out to Drew Hunt and that team as well. They're fans of the podcast, and they do a great job at keeping myself and Abby informed with what's going on, especially stats wise out there. So good luck to them this weekend. Good luck to them in Medomak Valley. It should be a fantastic matchup. Get out to Medomak on Friday night. That is a can't-miss game, especially, again, with how this Lincoln Academy team has been playing of late. 6 straight wins. We're going to see what they're made of this Friday, and it should be a fantastic matchup. No matter who wins that game, the fans and the basketball fans in the state of Maine win when you have two teams this talented meeting at this time in the season, because after this, there's only 4 more games on the schedule for Lincoln Academy. I will say, though, really tough stretch for them. Only 1 home game in their last 5 games. They're at Medomak Valley this Friday, and then they're home for Leavitt, finish the season at Belfast, at MCI, and at Erskine Academy. 10-3 right now, again, is Lincoln Academy, but this Class B South is just mayhem right now, so we'll talk a little bit more about Class A next week and in the York Wildcats too, but Lincoln Academy definitely deserves the love from me this week after just turning their season around. Again, 4-3 out of the gate, but 6 straight wins, and now really putting themselves in a position to easily solidify themselves as a top 4 in Class B South, but really is a team that can knock someone off when we get to tournament time. Let's turn our attention to the headlines on the girls' side, and really a couple stood out to me, but the most important one that I need to talk about tonight is the Wiscasset girls basketball team. I know I'm late to the party on this, I'm behind, but big shout out to the athletic director, Brandon Rogers, who's a good friend of mine. We played basketball at the University of Maine Augusta together. He used to dunk on me and kick my you-know-what all around the court, but incredible player, incredible person, athletic director there at Wiscasset. They get a 24-21 win over Islesboro back on January 10th. In Islesboro. It was an exciting come-from-behind victory, but more importantly, it shattered 122 straight losses for the Wiscasset girls program that dated back to January 22nd, 2016. It was a victory over the Halldale Bulldogs was the last one they got in 2016. This win, though, was huge. I spoke with the AD, Brandon Rogers, and it's hard to really grasp how long the Wiscasset girls losing streak was. 2,941 days to be exact. So, really great story. Incredible to see the Wiscasset girls finally break that streak, and it's always nice to see teams experience that win finally, and I know they've had a decent season there on the boys side too, so really happy to see you. Shout out Brandon Rogers and the Wiscasset girls. Also big shout out in Class B to Zack Keene, who won his 100th game in a 48-34 win over Lincoln Academy. Unbelievable win, and Zack Keene and really this group at Spruce Mountain are really formidable. They got a big win on Monday, the January 20th, to improve their record to 13-1 in Class B South. Maddie Grimaldi paced the Phoenix in the victory over the Hornets of Leavitt, who, by the way, are 8-5, so a really good win. Grimaldi had 19 points. Avery Bessie, 11. Natasha McDonald finished with 8. Merrick Bessie finished with 6. Riley Small finished with 4. Kanovich, I want to say Kanovich. I'm so sorry, Spruce Mountain, because I remember during the broadcast last year, y'all got on me for this, so I think it's Kanovich. If I'm wrong, someone hit me up. Coach Keene, I know you got my email after we talked to, so hit me up on that if I got it wrong. But either way, this Spruce Mountain team at 13-1, fantastic group, a lot of depth. You can watch a lot of their games if you want to catch them on Buzz Media like I do, but they're a really good team, and they can shoot the crap out of the ball. Caitlin McCoy led the way for the Leavitt Hornets. She had 20 points on 3 threes, while Jordan Boulay had 7 points for the Leavitt Hornets in a losing effort, 13-4, Spruce Mountain got out after it on January 20th in the first quarter. Really never looked back. Again, Avery Bessie, 2 made 3-pointers, 11 points. So really deep. And again, congratulations, Coach Zack Keene, who quite a few years ago, if y'all remember, I think it was 2019. I mean, this was someone who the parents really advocated for to come back and coach. So this is just an incredible story. They were in a state championship pretty recently. We talked about Jaden Pingree earlier in the episode. So a lot of great things happening under Coach Keene at Spruce Mountain on the girls' side. And they're continuing to show why they're going to be one of the best teams when they get to the Expo this year and potentially getting back to a state championship and getting another crack at that thing, because wow, they were pretty damn close against Ellsworth. One of the best state championship games I've ever seen. I had the pleasure to call it with Emma Tiedemann. Never going to forget that anytime soon. All right, let's get into the second of the starting 5 topics, the CMCC Game of the Week, brought to you by CMCC. Thank you so much to Central Maine Community College for supporting local and supporting us here at Big Time Hoops on the Big Time Hoops Starting 5 podcast, presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union. The Game of the Week this week was between the Oceanside Mariners and the Lawrence Bulldogs on the girls' side of things. What a matchup we had here, and Lawrence pulled away in the second half after being tied at halftime for the big win. Maddie Provost scored a game-high 23 points to lead the way and also earn the CMCC Player of the Game honors in that win over Oceanside. Lawrence with the win improved to 12-0 and then knocked off Camden Hills yesterday to improve to 13-0. They're one of the only few undefeated teams in the entire state, this Lawrence girls basketball team, and they're just just incredible. I mean, they've been taking everyone to task. The closest game so far this season for the Lawrence Bulldogs was a 62-53 win on the road at Class AA North Oxford Hills that features Ella Pelletier and Gabby Tibbetts, two of the best in the state. So, I mean, this Lawrence Bulldogs team is just an absolute horse. It's been really tough to knock them off. And for Oceanside coming into this game, right, you're playing up in your competition. Oceanside obviously is Class B South, Lawrence Class A North, and Oceanside now at 10-3 after that loss. They shouldn't feel bad about this. They started the season 1-2, a loss to Coney, a win over Medomak, and then a loss to Camden Hills. Since that loss, they ripped off 9 straight wins. This loss to Lawrence may be a bump in the road, but they'll finish the season with Morris, Mount Ararat, Medomak Valley, Belfast, and Hamden Academy, so not an easy road for the Mariners the rest of the way. We'll see how they do, but this loss hopefully will be a learning curve for them. It kind of felt like the first 2 games, they were getting their feet under them. They hit the 9-game winning streak, and now this is a chance maybe for the Oceanside girls to reset and get ready to focus on what's ahead, because ultimately they only like winning gold balls on the mid-coast, so a loss to Lawrence won't hurt them too bad. But for Lawrence, again, I mean, really impressive when you just have to feel like Lawrence might be one of the best girls teams in the state. Maybe a little teaser at my power rankings there for the top 5 in the state of Maine. Too bad I can't put Lawrence in there because they're the North, but hint, hint, they probably would be my number 1 team if they could be in my power rankings top 5. But again, the CMCC game of the week, the Lawrence Bulldogs knocking off Oceanside 56-37. Maddie Provost, player of the game with 23 points. Let's change direction and go to Class C South in our third topic tonight, as the Mount Abram Roadrunners, starting on the boys' side, are off and running 14-1. Monmouth Academy Mustangs and Wade Morrill at the helm 10-4, and the Halldale Bulldogs 11-4. Carabec also 10-3. Winthrop 9-7, rounding out your top 5 in Class C. But last night we got a little indication, I think, of just how talented and who really the top team is in this Class C South region. Not much action last night around the state, but Bryce Wilcox was unbelievable, hitting 8 3-pointers, 34 points, really was the star of the show when a lot of us thought in that game against Spruce Mountain, Jace Bessie, who did have 4 3-pointers of his own, would be the kind of the talk of the town, if you will. Instead, Mount Abram pulls a little bit of a class upset as they played up in class against Class B South Spruce Mountain and won 63-57. So pretty impressive win for the Roadrunners, who are now again 14-1 in Class C South, and get a big win over Jace Bessie and company. Bryce Wilcox, again, the leader there. And you do feel like Halldale has an opportunity, but one of the things Halldale has to look out for, and never sleep on the Mustangs either, because Wade Morrill is one of the best coaches in the state. He'll have his boys ready to rock when Class C tournament action gets rolling. But looking at this Halldale Bulldogs team, I talked to one of my little birdies up there in the capital area, and they feel pretty good about themselves at 11-4, really guard heavy, and that's the thing. When they play a little bit more bigger and physical athletic teams like Mount Abram, they might run into some trouble, but I wouldn't sleep on the Halldale Bulldogs boys basketball team right now at 11-4. Again, pretty guard heavy. If this team gets hot in a tournament game or can maybe get some of the bigs on another team into some foul trouble by attacking the rim, you could be talking about a 3-seeded Halldale Bulldogs surprising people. But right now, especially after that game against the Spruce Mountain Phoenix, it's all Mount Abram on the boys side, and they've been fantastic. Again, Bryce Wilcox, a huge game last night, 8 3-pointers, and leading the way in Class C South for the Roadrunners to keep on running. And again, they're pretty much the number 1 seed all the way through now at this point. I mean, they wouldn't have to basically lose a ton of games to end up not as the number 1 seed. So Roadrunners looking to finish strong, and well, we'll see how they do in the tournament. That's going to be a really fun region, especially on the boys side. Changing the conversation to the girls, let's look at the Winthrop Ramblers, 12-4. Number 2 Carabec is 9-4, while the Madison area Bulldogs are 8-3. Halldale is 11-3. Buckfield is 11-2, and Deergo 10-5. Poland also 10-2 in this Class C South region. It's going to be competitive as all hell down the stretch, and the Madison Bulldogs are a team as well. Mackenzie Robbins, a great scorer. They can get hot from beyond the arc, and Winthrop, from everything that I've heard, is as real as it gets. They lost to Madison 51-41 last time out, but on any given night, according to who I talked to up there in Class C, this Winthrop team can beat Madison, and we'll see as it goes on and when we get into the tournament time if they can serve some revenge. They did lose at home, the Winthrop girls did, to Madison 51-41 back on January 17th. They've rattled off 2 wins since. They played Old Orchard Beach and Waterville to finish the season, and hopefully will be 14-4 heading into the tournament. But Madison is definitely a team to watch in this region at 8-3, along with Winthrop again, who I think despite a loss to Madison in that, they've lost to Spruce and Monmouth as the other two. I would feel like Winthrop is going to be tough to take down. Halldale is another very interesting one. Like the boys' side, they sit a little bit outside looking in. 11-3 losses to Winthrop, to Mount Abram, and to Spruce Mountain, who's been playing well against everybody, as we talked about under Coach Keene. They finished the season against Monmouth. They'll play Monmouth this Saturday. That is a hell of a game between those two, because again, when you look at where Monmouth stands, they're 8-5 and an 8th in Class C South. It is a cluster you-know-what in Class C South on the girls' side. Monmouth and Halldale will meet on January 25th. Then again, Halldale will play Waynfleet on the 28th. Then they'll play Madison. They will play that on the road up in Madison on January 29th before finishing at home against Monmouth again on February 4th. 3 road games. They did get a big win against MCI, the Halldale Bulldogs girls team did on January 20th, 48-27. This is the beginning of a 4-game road stretch for this Bulldogs team where this is going to really determine where they fall. They've been dealing with injury woes. Tori Tibbetts and Jade Graham, both girls have had dislocated kneecaps, according to what I've been told. And look, it doesn't really look like that they've started practicing and maybe they're going to get back, but this is going to be tough for them. And those two players are huge for the Halldale Bulldogs. So we'll continue to monitor that situation, but that's something to watch. If Tori Tibbetts and Jade Graham can get back into this Halldale Bulldogs lineup, they're already 11-3 right now. You have to feel they're going to have a chance to knock off anyone, whether it's Madison, whether it's Winthrop, whether it's Deergo, Poland, or Monmouth. The Halldale Bulldogs are going to have something to say if Tibbetts and Graham get back in this lineup. Again, both suffering right now from knee injuries. We'll see where it goes, but a lot of excitement in Class C South on the boys and girls side. Things became a little bit more clear this week with Mount Abram on the boys side, whereas on the girls side, I think it's up for grabs, and knowing some of these injuries that are out there, we'll have to see if some of these teams can get healthy for the tournament, and if that will impact tournament runs, especially up there in the capital area at the Augusta Civic Center, one of my favorite venues as a former UMaine Augusta Moose. Played a lot of my basketball there. Love the venue. Love playing on it, and I know that a lot of kids enjoy it too, and Class C South is going to have a hell of a fun time playing their tournament games there. Should be must-see TV for a lot of them on the girls' side. All right, let's move on from Class C and get into the fourth topic, second to final topic. I got my power rankings coming for you next, but let's tackle this Maine high school basketball classification proposal. I think it's awesome. I've been reading a lot of other people think it's awesome. I talked to Michael Hoffer about it. He really liked it, and at its face, I think it's really good. 28 teams will be in Class AA, nearly doubling the size of the division for the largest schools. 28 teams each in Classes A through C, and only 19 schools in Class D, but each with an enrollment of under 100 students, which I really like. I know there was some complaints from Southern Aroostook a little bit about it. They've been dominating that class, and now they'll have their chance in Class C, but I really like it because I think of the teams like Vinyl Haven and Islesboro and New Haven, and they're really, I think, going to have an opportunity in Class D now to compete with enrollments that are extremely small, so we'll see. And even Forest Hills, for instance, at 49 enrollment, like 49 kids, right? Like that's, you got to make do with it. So again, the Southern Aroostook girls are an interesting one. They've dominated Class D in recent years. They've won 6 of the last Class D North Regional crowns and the last 3 state titles with a projected enrollment of 108. They're now in Class C, and that's going to be really interesting to see how they do moving up there. Joining Southern Aroostook and moving up to Class C would be Class D boys champ Bangor Christian. Class C girls hoops champ Dexter would move up to Class B. The Oceanside girls team moves from Class B, where it won the gold ball, to Class A. The Brunswick girls, winners of the Class A championship, would go to Class AA. The only teams that even won championships last year, according to Travis Lazarzik of the Portland Press-Herald, that wouldn't move are Monmouth would stay in Class C, Orono would stay in Class B, Grey New Gloucester would stay in Class A, and all of them would stay put, but 5 of the 8 2024 runners-up in those 4 classes would also be moved up a class in this proposal. So a lot of movement, which again, I'm really for. It is interesting. We talked a lot about Halldale and Winthrop today. They would be moved up to Class B. They would no longer be Class C schools, which according to Rob Kennedy has never happened at Halldale. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. Go to portlandpressherald.com. Check out Travis Lazarzik's writing about it. Check out Steve Craig's writing about it. I just wanted to kind of bring the conversation here, start the conversation, see if we can get more of a dialogue of it from the fans, because I do think think it's a really good idea, and I'm all for it, and I can't wait to see if this proposal gets passed and voted through. It's obviously not official yet, but a lot of people around the state of Maine liking it. Michael Hoffer, it sounded like he liked it when I talked with him too. So a lot of basketball minds around the state of Maine really, I think, enjoy what this could be, and I'm loving what Class AA could be, especially Class AA South. Coach Russo had mentioned that he thinks, the competition going to all of AA South is, it kind of loads it up and it takes away from Class AA North. I agree with him to a degree, but at the same time, I'd also argue like Class AA now becomes so much better because of it. Like in Class A South for soccer that I coach soccer at Portland High. We're in Class A South, SMAA. It's one of the most competitive regions in the entire state for soccer. There's like 6 teams every year that win a state championship, but only one can make it out of the region. The playoffs every year. The last 2 years, our boys went into 2 shootouts. We went to a shootout with Gorham in the quarterfinal. We went to a shootout in the semifinal with Windham. We've been to overtime. We lost in overtime in the regional final to Scarborough this past year. We lost 1-0 to Deering in the regional final the year before. 2 regional final losses for us. It was heart-wrenching, but the competition's amazing. And it just, you want to breed that competition because it only makes the players better. And with so many kids going to play at the college ranks right now, especially at the Class AA level, it's only better that we continue to promote this kind of competition, and especially within the MPA. So I'm all for it. Love the classification proposal. Go check it out again on Portland Press Herald sports page if you want to check out more about the proposal. They got a ton of articles on it. You guys can get informed. All right, now let's get to what you all have been waiting for, my power rankings. I know everyone loves these power rankings. There is fun with them. I've officially made my power rankings. They're going to be a little controversial for some of y'all. I don't care. I'm not going to explain myself. I'm just going to throw them out there, and I'll explain myself next week a little bit. I guess I just want to throw it out there, get some reactions from people. We'll see how we are. On the boys' side in class, I guess I should just say in the boys' side in the South region, my top 5 teams: Windham Eagles, Medomak Valley Panthers, Noble Knights, York Wildcats, Thornton Academy Trojans are your top 5. Honorable mention, South Portland and Falmouth, definitely in the mix. On the girls' side, I can't include Lawrence as much as I want to. So with that said, number 1, Oxford Hills girls, the Marshwood Hawks, the Mount Ararat Eagles, the Biddeford Tigers, and the South Portland Red Riots girls basketball team. Rounding it out for me in my top 5 power rankings in the South. Again, on the boys' side, Windham, Medomak Valley, Noble, York, TA. On the girls' side, Oxford Hills, Marshwood, Mount Ararat, Biddeford, South Portland. That's going to do it for episode 7 of the Starting 5 podcast. I'm sorry it took us so long to get this one out. It won't take me this long to get the next one out. I love y'all. Thanks for sticking with us. Can't wait till next time. Stay tuned here on Big Time Hoops Starting 5 podcast, presented by Town & Country Federal Credit Union. So much more good stuff to come, more coaches interviews to come, a lot of exciting stuff. We're getting into the nitty-gritty, man. Tournament time around the corner. Stay tuned for more updates on Big Time Hoops for all things Maine basketball.